Hey there, team. Kim Brighton is here with TeamJesusMag.com, and we are in the locker room today with two teammates who are giants in the industry of Christian faith. They take Christian faith and they market it to the mainstream and in film. And because of their passion for Team Jesus, they have a book out called The Way Back: How Christians Blew Our Credibility and How We Get It Back. Help us welcome today Phil Cooke of Cooke Pictures and Jonathan Bock, Grace Hill Media. How you doing, guys?
Good.
Wow.
We're thrilled to be here. This is fun.
Awesome. We're glad to be here at Cooke Pictures
Oh, yeah.
in LA.
Welcome.
This is
Welcome.
a great day, beautiful day, and it's great to sit down with you guys and chat about The Way Back.
Yeah.
We got some work to do.
We got some
work to do. So,
Yeah.
team, this is not going to be just a simple, listen, I'm going to tell you straight up right here. Get a highlighter, plus, when you're in Amazon, wherever, get a highlighter and the book. So many good nuggets. So many good nuggets. And we're going to start with, I like to start with the cover.
Would you?
I'll
like
let you
to start
take
with
that.
the
You're the
cover.
marketing expert.
Yes. So, Context Clues tells us that, is this our credibility slipping through our fingers?
How about
Is
that?
that what's
Pretty
happening
much,
right here?
pretty
Talk
much.
to us about that.
You're very insightful. I'm impressed.
Yeah.
What's going on with the sand? Yeah.
You know, it's funny.
happening?
This is the first book I've ever written, and the
Okay.
process that you work with your publisher on finding a book cover,
Yes, Artemis in it.
torture.
Yeah, I
Torture.
can imagine.
And
I
so
can
we
imagine.
went round and round and round and round,
Yeah.
but I think we ended up with a cover that best represents how we feel of what's really going on.
What's
And I think
happening, yeah.
for your readers or your viewers, they know this to be true as well. That is that it's slipping away from us.
It is.
And something is wrong. And Phil and I are media and marketing guys, and we set out to write a book to try and answer that problem. We looked at it and said we have a PR problem, and for us it started from a place of the disconnect between who we feel we are, who we perceive ourselves to be, and how the world perceives us.
Right.
And so a really simple example of that is the fruits of the Spirit.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
Here's what we're supposed to be known for: love, joy, peace, patience,
Awesome.
kindness.
Yes.
You know the list.
Yes,
Okay?
exactly.
Now, which of those words would you say that the world, non-Christians, use to describe the Christian community? And the short answer is none. They don't use those words. They use hypocritical, judgmental, bigoted, negative. I mean, there's, from a PR point of view, there's a real disconnect.
There's a
right
perception problem. There's a PR problem. Yes.
For sure.
definitely.
And that's where we started.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. So as you guys looked at this perception problem, where did it take you in your research?
Well, you know, it's interesting. We look back at how Christians have responded to the changes in the culture in the last 30, 40 years. I mean, in my life, I'm the oldest guy here, so in my lifetime, I've seen this dramatic change. You know, when I was a kid, prayer was normal in schools. Everybody did, especially during exams, right?
Right, yeah.
And
yeah, right there, yeah.
abortion was clearly wrong. Marriage was between a man and a woman. There were so many issues like that in my lifetime have completely changed. Completely changed. And so the response that most Christians have is we get frustrated. We often get angry.
Right.
We think, you know what, if we could get involved in politics, maybe that'll change it. That hasn't done us a lot of good.
Right.
Then we think, by golly, we're going to boycott people. You don't say Merry Christmas, you say Happy Holidays, we're going to buy your coffee. So we thought we'd use some what we call anger strategies. Let's get mad at the culture. But we discovered nobody changes because you get mad at them.
Right.
And so really we looked at every single social issue out there, and we've not moved the dial in a positive direction on any issue that we could find.
Out of all of the boycotting, all the letters,
all the anger,
all the anger,
petition drives. I mean, if boycotts worked, why don't missionaries do it? You know, let's go to a third world country, surround a tribe, hold up signs, criticize them, call them this. That's going to win them to Jesus.
Yeah,
not
exactly.
quite. And if it doesn't work there, it's not going to work in Hollywood or with the gay community or anybody else.
Right.
So we started looking at what if maybe there's this possibility that we've been doing something wrong here.
It couldn't be us though,
Good,
right?
yeah, I know, that's a problem. That's
Never
a huge
say that.
problem. Yeah. And so we started looking at research. We went to the biggest researchers out there, Barna, Gallup, Lifeway, Pew, and we started looking at how Christians live their lives. Just easy stuff, not mission trips, not fasting, just prayer, Bible reading, church attendance, tithing, giving.
Yeah.
And what we
Baseline
found was,
stuff.
Yeah, easy stuff.
Not deep, nothing, no heavy lifting there. Just
But what we found was shocking. I mean, we were really surprised at just how badly we're living the Christian life. And I mean, John, give us some statistics about some of the things that we need.
Yeah, so essentially in this country, you're looking at, depending on the question they're asking and which researcher is asking, between 70 and 80% of the country classifying themselves as Christians.
Okay.
But on a weekly basis, like I go every week, we're only talking about 20% of the country is showing up to church. Okay, so that's a big chunk of people who are showing up never Christmas and Easter or some form of
Yeah.
The rule of thumb now in churches of what a regular is in church is 3 out of every 8 Sundays, or 19 whole times a year. Makes you
Now
a
considered
regular.
That's a regular.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty sad.
And of that group, okay, these are people who are actually showing up. They're in the pews. 40% of them rarely or never read the Bible. They're just not even opening the book.
20% of the regulars.
Well,
No,
okay.
40% of the regulars.
40% of the regulars.
Who are 20%.
So Gallup has a number that it's
People in the
about,
pew.
on any given
Yes.
Sunday, there's about 41% of people in church. So this number is really in of that group of people. It's people who are showing up to church, right?
Right.
Semi-regularly, regularly, frequently, right? But of those people who classify themselves as a Christian, who say, I go to church frequently, 40% of them are rarely or never opening the Bible at all. Wow.
That's pretty significant.
Okay.
And
That's really
prayer,
significant.
prayer, we discovered, it's funny, we saw that 63% of those people think prayer is essential. And we thought, well, that's good. Until we realized the flip side means 37%, more than a third of Christians in the pews on Sunday don't believe prayer is essential. So you start looking at those kind of statistics. He found one on tithing. Less than 10% of the people in the pews are actually giving 10%.
Give that 10%, yeah.
And when you start looking at that, you suddenly realize, okay, now I see why the world looks at us and calls us hypocrites and phony.
Exactly.
We're not living the life that we're called to live. So, John had a great revelation that the greatest problem facing American Christianity in this year is not rising secularism or radical Islam or the gay community or Hollywood or anybody else. The greatest threat to Christianity in America is American Christians, because we're just not living the life.
Yeah, we have essentially become the fat guy in the gym lecturing other people about good health.
We're wearing the what? The
Yeah.
yoga pants.
Yoga pants.
We have a
you
lot
like
of
that.
Love it.
There's a line in the book that is working out is hard and wearing
Well,
yoga
you're wearing yoga pants.
Yeah.
is easy.
It's easy.
You
And
got
we have-
that part
And
down.
we have a lot of Christians who are just wearing yoga pants.
True.
Wow.
True.
But you know what's striking is for us to serve the true and living God.
Yep.
When we look at other religions, oh my gosh, are they not faithful? Do
No,
they not
serious.
pray all the time? Are they not reading their holy book? What is going on?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, let's first talk to your audience who clearly cares.
Yes.
Okay?
Because we are the team.
That's right, and
Yeah.
they're the people who are showing up. They are the people who are reading.
Yes.
They are the people who are tithing. They are the people who are committed and volunteering. And to that we say, God bless you.
Yeah.
Thank
Good
you.
job.
Okay, but you have to understand what is happening out there to your mission because of the complacency of other people.
Well, so many people. I mean, when that many people drop the ball,
Yeah.
that makes us all they paint us with the same
Exactly.
brush.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Think of it a little bit like the baseball steroid scandal from a few years ago.
Okay.
There were definitely a minority of players, not a majority, a minority of players who were
Right,
using
doing it.
performance-enhancing drugs.
Right.
Okay. Well, that tarnished the entire sport.
Yes.
Every player now is tarnished by
Beside
that.
Yeah.
Any stats that you got, you might have had a great year, and everyone assumes you were on steroids.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And so for the people out there who are living this life, the inaction and the complacency of their fellow Christians is doing tremendous damage to them. And that's a problem.
So do you think that some outreach needs to happen internally?
Oh yeah. In fact, it's funny. I've had a lot of pastors call me and say, "I'm buying multiple copies of the book to use as a small group resource in our church because we need to get with it internally before we ever start sharing the message out there."
Exactly.
And it seems so trite at one level that of course we should be living the Christian life, but it's just so interesting to me that we just don't. Not so few of us. And you had a great comment about the other religions. I was I was in the Middle East recently, and we were in an Arab country, and our bus pulled up to a big mosque. We were taking a tour, and while we were on the tour, the bus driver got out, laid out his mat, he did his prayers.
Exactly.
I've never seen a Christian bus driver get out and do that.
Exactly,
you know?
right.
And,
they don't care what's going on. Is it
yeah,
what time?
yeah.
Where's the East? They're going in.
Yeah,
They're going
other
in.
people are very, and you know what? It's true about other lifestyles. Hollywood people, you know, people on all kind of political spectrums here in the U.S. I just find they're more serious than we are. Whatever they believe, they take it seriously, and so we wonder why culture's shifting at the rate it is, because they're really intentional, and we're just not. We're just not.
But there's a reason why we're not, team. There's a reason why we're not. You guys talk about this enigmatic entity called that other God.
Yeah.
You know, when you're reading that, you're thinking, I wonder what this God is. Isn't that how we do when
We do.
The elephant is in the room, it's pink, it has on bells and whistles, come on. Well, what is that? It's who? It's us.
Yeah.
We're the sales force presenting
So
Jesus
true.
Christ.
Yeah.
But
Well,
how are
we tend to
representing
think
him?
of idol worship as a long ago problem,
Right,
an Israelite problem.
A calf.
And
There's a calf
it doesn't have
somewhere.
anything to do with us.
Yeah.
Right.
Because as you know, when your pastor goes away, we don't build a golden calf out in the narthex of the church. We're not involved in that.
Right,
But we
right.
actually believe that American Christians are the most sophisticated idol makers in the history of the world, because we made an idol that looks like God, has the veneer of God, but it's really just an idol
Oh my
that we
gosh.
worship. It's
I
ourselves.
think that was a line in the book. We create that other God, which is ourself, which is our fleshly desires, our one-sided, our selfie culture.
Yeah.
And we paint it with a veneer of the gospel, a veneer of
Yeah.
The easy
It's rich.
stuff, the easy stuff in the gospel.
It's rich.
And here's the thing: that other God understands me, and he understands why I don't have time to go to church. He knows I'm busy.
Exactly.
He understands why I'm cheating on my wife. I mean, she's gotten grumpy and older, and he wants me to be happy, right?
Right.
And
'Cause God is what?
Exactly. He's love.
Love.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we've kind of created this God in our image instead of conforming our lives to His image.
Yes,
and
exactly.
we just got going down the wrong direction, but it's a lot easier to live like that.
That other God is,
it's-
He'll sign your hall pass.
That's right.
He's
You
okay.
get out of jail. He has
Yeah.
a stack of get out of jail
He
free cards.
understands.
He's okay with me being totally disobedient.
Yeah.
You know.
He's okay. He understands.
He knows I struggle.
Yes.
We're not perfect. Come on.
Yeah, we're not perfect. God knows our.
Don't
that
judge
other God
me.
knows our heart.
That's right.
My intent.
My intent.
That's my intent. My
True.
context.
I mean well. We have that in the South. He's got a good heart. He means well.
Right, exactly.
But the real problem is, what do you do about that?
Well,
Once
what
you
do we do about
realize
that? Yeah.
and we say this as humble co-conspirators in this,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Is that
Everyone at
once
this
you
table
realize,
is
once
We're
you
dealing
realize
with our
those
own.
places where I'm projecting what I want God to be onto God, not
come on.
conforming my life to
Yeah,
God. Now what do you do about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now how do I fix that? And that was essentially the second half of the book is how do we
What do we
find
do?
the way back?
Yeah.
How do we find the way back to it? And that's, we had to look around. We were trying to find the right model for that.
Okay.
And we had to go all the way back to the early church.
Early Christians, yes.
We had to go all the way back to the Mount of Olives. And so when Jesus departed into the heavens, and he left his disciples there, they had nothing. They didn't have political power. They didn't have money. They didn't even have a plan. I mean, they were standing there so long that eventually,
with their mouths were like,
Yeah.
that
is it
eventually
gone?
2 angels had to come and be like, "Come on,
No, let's
move."
Yeah.
And they had nothing. And yet in 200 years, they go from a cult in a backwater Roman province, okay, of uneducated fishermen to the most influential force in the Western world.
But they
in
had Facebook
200
ads,
years.
right? They had Facebook
Yeah,
ads.
social media helped
They had
it a
social
lot.
media
No
right
question. No question.
They had Starbucks. In the,
Right, just meet me.
it's great. The Frappuccino's unbelievable. Yeah, they had nothing. But in
nothing.
200 years, and by the way, in the ancient world, 200 years goes by very quickly. They lightning fast transformed the entire Mediterranean world. How did they do that?
Right.
How did they do
And
that?
why are we not we have all of these
Yeah.
memes and
Oh, yeah.
platforms and
Yeah.
And
So
why-
what did they have?
why are
I
we
mean,
not
we're starting in a
transforming
way better place.
Yes, we
than
are.
they
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right?
We're
Definitely.
less effective.
But what did they
Yeah.
have? They had a rock solid commitment. They were gonna, I mean, they had friends now be dying for their faith, and they stuck with it.
But that
Right.
wasn't a usual thing back in the day, was it? Being
Martyred?
persecuted, yes.
Oh,
Being
yeah.
persecuted.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
And,
it
one of
was.
the things we mentioned in the book is that when you accepted Christ, we've kind of dumbed down this phrase. We call it accepting Christ. 2,000 years ago, that was like signing your death warrant.
Yeah, thank
This
you.
wasn't this
Thank you,
simple,
Tim.
I'm accepting Christ. This was, I'm going to die, but I'm going to do this anyway.
But I love God.
Exactly. I love God,
Wow.
and I'm going to do it. And so it was a serious commitment. We don't make those kind of serious commitments anymore. And what we discovered ultimately with those first generation believers was that they couldn't act. They couldn't. I mean, they couldn't change things. They had no power and influence or money, but they could act. And so they would. There were so many issues. Infanticide is one of the biggest. The Romans had no regard for life. Sounds like our culture today. So much so that when a baby was born, then if you didn't want it, in fact, one of the books we researched when we wrote our book was told that Romans didn't decide their baby's name for at least 2 weeks after it was born because they wanted that much time to decide whether
Do I want it or not?
to kill it or not. And they didn't just leave it; they killed it. And so they would take it if they didn't want it. Mostly a girl, most often a girl. They would take it to the city wall and just put it out there and let it die of exposure. And that was so common. We actually have letters still from Roman soldiers writing home to their pregnant wife saying, "Look, when the baby's born, if it's a girl, just expose it." And since Roman soldiers own their wives, own their kids, it happened. So these Christians couldn't change anything politically, but they could go out under cover of night, take in these abandoned children, bring them into their family, raise them as their own. Other members of the church community would contribute money to help pay for the expense of that child. And the Romans could not wrap their head around why anybody would do this. Yeah, why? They couldn't. Why? And so many other things. The plague, when the plague was hit, Romans were famous for bolting out of town as quick as they could go. But Christians went to ground zero, right to the heart of the plague, to minister to people they didn't even know at the risk of their own life. Again, Romans, why? Why do they do this? And historians now look at that and realize that those kind of acts caused the Romans to shift their thinking and start to reconsider, wait a second, who are these people and who is this God they talk about?
Yeah. Who is Jesus?
Yeah, who is this God? What drives them? What motivates them? And that's considered one of the biggest reasons that the shift happened in the Roman Empire and Christianity became the dominant religious force in the Western world. And so the book simply, that leads us in the book to the big question in the book, which is politics hasn't worked, anger strategies hasn't worked, boycotts hasn't worked, getting mad at people hasn't worked. What if we started looking for things that would so astonish the culture today, it would force them to rethink who we are and who is this God that we serve? And that's the ultimate question. And we give 6 or 8 examples of what they could be.
Right.
But we also ask people, look, what could you do in your church, in your street, in your family, on your block to make that kind of impact?
That's where the early church started. In
Exactly.
the neighborhood, in the community.
Yes.
So this is not a commission to get your passport and go to another land,
Yes.
across the ocean. There are things that we can do
Oh,
right
J.
in
John,
your backyard.
one of my favorite evangelists in the UK, J. John, says, you want to be a missionary? Great, go next door.
There you go, exactly. Or go to the room next to you and go tell your family members.
Exactly.
Do you know how many family members? I mean, the church has our priorities are gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it starts with us.
It does.
It starts with us,
It does.
and we got to get back in the gym.
Yeah.
We
And
got to.
Get
we
serious.
got to start working out again.
We have to.
be obedient. We have to
Mhm.
put in the time, the prayer, the reading. We just have to do it. It's
Make
just
it happen.
It just has to
It
happen.
has to be important enough for us to do.
Yeah.
Good point.
It
Great
has to.
point.
We have to be
Yeah.
driven, and we have to need Jesus like we need air
Oh, it's
to
good.
breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's true.
Yep. But then there's things that we can do on a local level and on a national level that really can make a huge difference. So, for example, on a very, very small local level, one day I was walking down my street. I was walking my dog, and I realized that of the 12 houses on my street, I knew people in 3 of them. I mean, I knew a bunch of like, hey, how you doing? Nice to see you, kind of neighbor kind of conversation.
Right.
But I didn't know anything about them, nothing about them. And so my wife and I just decided to throw a block party we just invited everybody and said, hey, we should all know each other. And what we discovered when they all came, first off, they all came.
Wow.
And secondly, what we discovered is some of them have been there 25 and 30 years. They didn't know each other, right? That we're all so busy and the world is moving so fast and the world has just changed where you don't know everybody on your block. And so that's a super simple way of just investing into people's lives. Throw a party. That's easy. That's not the hardest charge I could ever give you.
Fellowship, exactly.
And then on a bigger level, you know, there's issues like that we can use to astonish the world again. A perfect example is foster care.
Okay. Yes.
There are 450,000 foster care kids in this country. That is a huge number of people. That's the size of Salt Lake City, and just of abandoned children living in our country, which is easy to look at and go, oh my gosh, what could I possibly do about that? Well, except when you lay on top of that, there are 350,000 churches. All of a sudden you go, wait a minute. So if each church, if they could find one family in each church to take 1+ kids, we could wipe out the foster system like that. I mean, we could do it if we wanted to do it. And when you look at what foster kids go through, I mean, 1% graduation rate for kids in the foster care. 25% of them, the second they get emancipated when they are 18, within a year, 25% of them will be homeless. Of girls, 75% of them will be pregnant within the first 3 years of being emancipated. So the cycle just continues on and on and on, right? What are we going to do about it? Let's stop it. It's very simple to stop. Take one in. Have them be part of your family.
And that's a change.
And if we did that as a church community, we could impact not just those 450,000 kids, but millions of lives to come. That generations we can stop that process.
Exactly. Wow. You said something that came to my mind. We covered the MLK 50 conference earlier this month in Memphis. And you said something that one of the gentlemen said at the conference, get to know your neighbors. What role does racial reconciliation play in your thinking of how to improve the Christian brand, especially in America?
Well, you know what? Racial reconciliation is something everybody talks about, but nobody actually does much. And so our thought was, let's come up with a plan. We worked this thing out. He really started thinking about this hardcore, where we said, okay, let's find a white church, black church, Hispanic church, Asian church, whatever, that's similar to your theology and doctrine, and let's take maybe 5, 10, 20, 50 of your best people. Let's send them over to that church, get 5, 10, 50, or whatever their best people, send them to yours for 6 months. Do a switch. And then after 6 months, let's do it again. And maybe some will go back, maybe some will stay, but suddenly you're actively starting to make that change happen. And I just don't think we're going to, the truth is there's segregation in housing developments. There's so much where we live. And so it's not a magic thing that's going to go away unless we get intentional about it. We just have to do something. Yeah. So, we have friends that we have churches that our church partners with. And we've been experimenting with that. And so I think, and I've heard the same thing from other pastors, that it's such a simple thing to do. Take some of your best people, send them over to that church for 6 months, and you have them come over to your church. And suddenly you start meeting people, getting to like people, know them, and it's just.
But that was what was so telltale in your block party. It was simple.
Yeah, it's not that
They didn't
hard.
say, no, I don't know you. I'm not coming to your party.
No.
You know what I mean? That wasn't the response. People are waiting for you to open your mouth, team, to say hello, to give someone a smile, to say, hey, you want to come over for whatever? That's the welcoming spirit that we saw in Acts. Yeah. Where if you didn't have, I have. Would you like some of mine?
Yes, hospitality is a big thing.
Hospitality,
Big thing. I just think that, and do it all with joy. Don't. Christians can be the grumpiest people in the room. And I think very often if we could just share the joy of Jesus in our life, people. And here's the deal: if you lead with joy, you don't have to witness to anybody. Trust me, they'll come up and want to ask what's going on.
Right.
And it opens the door for a conversation. So all of these things, you know what? I'd encourage everybody watching, go out, figure out the things you could do in your family, in your neighborhood, on your street, that would so baffle them, they'd want to know more. They want to know why you're doing this. And I think that could start a revolution in this country.
Well, before I let you go, I wanted to shift gears from that other God being us to our enemy. Any time you have a team, you have an opponent. And we have many opponents now that are counterfeit. So just like you have knockoffs in the commercial world,
Right.
we have some knockoff Christians who wear the label, but they're not doing what our mission is. Any thoughts on how we combat the counterfeit? In the
You
Christian
combat the
brand?
counterfeit by letting people realize what's genuine. When you know what the genuine is, you can spot the counterfeit.
That's true.
That is just spot
We
on.
interviewed both.
That is fine. Right, when you know a coach or whatever, ladies,
Yeah.
if you're doing purses or if when you know you can feel.
Yeah, true.
Come on, Jonathan.
Yeah.
That's real. Go ahead. What we?
Well, no, I was just gonna say we
You're not
actually,
going to beat that, so just,
no.
just stop.
Just stop right there.
I'm gonna support it. We actually were interviewed by a guy who said maybe we need to thin the ranks in the church. Maybe we were so focused on growing the church.
Mhm.
Maybe there's some people that shouldn't be there, and
Okay.
probably the best way to do it is you start living a real life.
How about
and
that
they're
one?
getting uncomfortable. If they're gonna be fake, they're gonna get uncomfortable around people who are authentic, authentic Christians.
Mm.
And so, yeah,
That
it's kind
is
of
interesting. You know what? What you just said is like sometimes the tares won't have to wait for God to do the separating.
That's true.
Sometimes the tares like I'm tired of this wheat. These
Yeah.
wheat people are too real.
Yeah.
And the tares are like I'm going over here where I have some soft Christians, some soft wheat.
That's
where I
true.
can feel more comfortable.
I'll tell
Or they'll feel convicted themselves.
And they'll
Right? And
Which would be the best
They'll
thing.
see what it.
right, which is the goal.
Yeah, I mean, if you play basketball in your backyard, you think
Mhm.
you're pretty good,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
Then you go to like, where guys are really playing,
Right,
like in a
right.
college gym or something. Like
Mhm.
you discover real fast how
That's
how
what your
not
skills,
good
yeah,
you are,
just- yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you then right? And so the more people can see us as living it, genuine, that'll fix the problem.
There you go. So team, you don't have to make this
right.
complicated. The simplicity of the gospel is just that. It's very simple.
Sure, that's a good word.
We have the precepts. You have to love it. You have to want to do it. It has to be in your heart
Yeah.
to actually bring it forth. And that's how we become a team of excellence and how we win others to Christ. So before we let you guys go, what's going on new in your world and how can the team support what you all have going on?
Well, I'm going to Australia tomorrow,
Yes.
and we've been invited to the Christian Media Conference and throughout Australia. We're going to New Zealand as well. I'm going to be speaking on. I speak about the intersection of faith, media, and culture, and we're a
Uh-huh.
media-driven culture. So I'm
Yes.
always excited to share with Christians how they could use the media more effectively to share their faith.
Awesome.
So I'm going to be out there doing that in Australia and New Zealand. We're going to be there for almost 3 weeks, and so I'm very excited. We've been to Dubai, we've been to Moscow this year. There's a huge hunger internationally for
Yes.
Christians to want to know how I can use social media, the web, how can I use
Mhm.
video, film, how can I use these
Exactly.
things to share my faith, and so we're thrilled to go help.
There you go. Awesome. Jonathan, what about you?
I'm just continuing to market films and television to the faith community, and really for people out there, you need to understand that you buying a ticket makes a difference. It makes a difference. Opening weekend can make a huge difference, and we need to start seeing ourselves as patrons of the arts again. If you look at,
okay.
you go to Italy, right?
Mhm,
They didn't just in the Renaissance. The church wasn't just making art; they were making what everybody regarded as the best art, right? And it has withstood the test of time. And so we need to view ourselves again as patrons of the arts and really support Christians who are out there doing it, and living it, and making it, and make those things a hit. Because the more you make them a hit, I mean, Hollywood is a business of trying to catch lightning in a bottle twice, right?
Wow.
And so if a World War II movie surprises everybody and opens, that's how you get 15 more World War II. Get me a
Exactly.
World War II movie.
Yeah,
Somebody
stats.
slams on a
Yeah,
desk on Monday
exactly.
morning.
Exactly.
And so the more Christian films and Christian television is a hit, you're gonna get more of it, and it's also gonna get better, right? Because
Exactly.
they're willing to put more money into
money,
it.
more budget.
They're willing to put more actors into it. That better script revisions, all of those things that just feeds on itself, and our artists get better and better and better.
Here you go, folks. We have to do
Good.
it. Let's support
Do it.
our
Throw a
own.
party for your
Throw a
neighbors.
party.
Go see movies.
Go see movies. Get that
That's
ticket.
it.
Open
That's
the
all you
weekend.
have to do.
That's it. team, you don't want to miss this book. This is a library. This is evergreen content.
Well, you're very kind. Thank you.
This will never go out of style. You always need that reverse back. Even when you think, okay, I've got it now. You know, we all slip up and we all get comfortable sometimes, and we need that check of, okay, let me see, am I doing everything to really represent Christ? Get the book everywhere it's sold. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, I'm sure it's on all digital outlets. The Way Back. Don't miss it. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank
It was
you,
fantastic.
Jonathan.
We enjoyed
Awesome.
it.
That
We're
was
so
great.
glad. Welcome to the
Fun.
locker room.
Woo!
You're welcome here anytime at
Thank you.
TeamJesusMag.com.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for joining us. Stay tuned for more. We love you.